All right, we are finally live. Good evening, everyone. Sorry for broadcasting this late. We've had some technical difficulties, and we finally figured it out, and we're finally live. Welcome to Fantasy NBA tonight. We've been doing this. I think. Well, we did it last week on a Thursday, where we did the top 20 fantasy players of the decade.
hmm
I'm with Brent here, my good friend Brent, who I also spent the live broadcast last week. How are you doing, Brent?
doing good, thank you. Excited to be back for another live edition, and talking real life hoops pretty much this week. Since I don't know if anybody's doing fantasy, probably more daily fantasy at this point is the only thing that'll be active. But just excited to have basketball back and have something to look forward to and talk about.
Yeah, yeah. Ever since the last broadcast, we got some fantasy news. Yahoo finally put out an email or a post telling that all the saying that all the fantasy leagues are basically over. We were sent notification that whatever your ranking or rating, whatever that is at the end, is going to reflect on your fantasy rating moving forward. So whatever
Cool.
league you are, yeah. So wherever you are in the standings of your league, that's gonna stick. And we are looking forward for the next fantasy season. I guess that will be 2020 2021. But while we're waiting on that, we're going to talk about these injured players for tonight for the 22 team league that they're going to be restarting. And just recently, earlier today, they had some news that they were moving. It's funny, they're moving the start date or the restart of the league a day earlier. So it's now going to be July 30th instead of 31st. What are your thoughts on just moving it a day, Brent?
Uh, I mean, I move it 2 weeks sooner for me. I don't. Although these days in 2020, a day can make a big difference. I guess things are pretty wild right now. The world is pretty mercurial. It's day to day. It's things are getting crazy, but hopefully getting sports back, getting basketball back. I'm doing a slow football draft right now. So just having sports, something to fantasy sports, real life sports, whatever it is, to distract from the things that are going on out there. Really important issues, but we still need to live our lives and have fun and find things to occupy ourselves and do things as a community and nothing brings people together like fantasy sports. All walks of life. People love fantasy sports. It's a great way to to interact with people online. Even while we're stuck here at home, you can still talk to your friends and use the chat boards, and just happy that it's back. So I think with what we're going to talk about today, the injuries, there's a lot of key players coming in to this 22 game playoff that can really swing the balance quite a bit if they're going to be healthy. And just this couple of months difference is going to allow some guys to get on the court that probably wouldn't have been there on a normal playoff schedule. I know we're all waiting with bated breath if Carmelo Anthony is going to play or not. I know that's a big topic. I don't know how much. I guess that'd make a pretty good difference for the Blazers, but nothing quite like a couple of big guys we're going to talk about who were injured and now had more time to rest up and get ready. So, Michael, anybody jumps right out at you from the top, or do you want to kind of go team by team and talk
Well,
about?
let's start with what you basically said because you mentioned the Portland Trail Blazers.
Sure.
I have them on my list when I made this list, and I want to ask you about what do you think about Yusuf Nurkic coming back and affecting basically playing time and usage away from Hassan Whiteside. He's been quite the fantasy value this year in terms of fantasy hoops, but in reality, he's also helped the Blazers really solidify that middle. What do you think of him coming back? Aside from Carmelo Anthony, what do you think of Nurkic coming back from injury?
Yeah, I mean that's always the big question, right? When guys come back from a lengthy injury, how much are they going to affect the chemistry of the team? You know, that I think sometimes it gets overlooked how important the guys are playing together. Whatever skill level it is, even if you have your star player coming back, it can still disrupt the chemistry that these guys have built up. And Hassan Whiteside's been spectacular this year. He's shown that big guys who can't shoot threes are still valuable in this league if you have the right skill set. I think Nurkic though has the right mentality to fit right in. I think it's only going to be a plus for the Blazers when it gets to the playoffs. Well, usually you're coming right off a long regular season, so they've had a nice layoff, but you still can't be too deep. You know, they're very competitive. Injuries happen all the time. Just that few extra minutes that Whiteside can rest can help keep him out of foul trouble, can help keep him fresh going into the fourth quarter. Nurkic is a little bit better of a foul shooter, or a lot better of a foul shooter, so you could substitute him in late and still not lose that size underneath, keeping him on his, he's probably going to be on maybe a 15 to 20 minute restriction. But I think, it's going to be interesting how any of these teams react with the real short ramp up time, because none of them had really been able to play together. I've heard of some Zoom calls or Zoom workouts people have been doing together, but it's gonna be a quick thing. How quickly these guys can get back in the action. And the Blazers, they have guys like Nurkic who have played with Lillard before, so that's going to help a lot. How quickly he can get comfortable with Carmelo Anthony and Whiteside, but those guys are veterans. I think they're going to know what they need to do, and I think it's only going to be a plus for the Blazers. I like their chances a lot. I think getting those guys back has really moved them up, probably into maybe the top 12 of the teams remaining. So it'll be really fun to see. What do you think about Nurkic coming back and hurting Whiteside, and then potentially Collins too?
Yeah, we haven't talked about Collins too, but let's go back to Nurkic first. Nurkic is a very interesting case study because you have to remember he has a very serious injury. He's coming off, a sort of career-threatening injury. Most of the players that are coming off these types of injuries, it takes them about a year or two to just get into, first of all, basketball shape, and also getting back to the groove of things and all of this, all of this routine that the NBA has. And you throw in the sort of this 22 team league that they're doing, and you don't know what kind of schedule they're going to be. They're probably going to be playing every other day, and so there's another dynamic there with Nurkic that you don't know how his body is going to react. I suspect that they're going to split minutes with Whiteside still starting, and then he will be a backup then. But it's going to be weird because I think Nurk is a better fit with this team. And you can see it prior to the injury. He's a better fit than Whiteside. Even though Whiteside it has been a fantasy monster this year, he's got the stats to back up this year's his performance this year. It doesn't translate to wins. And you see that with the Blazers, they're sort of climbing up to the standings, right? Rather than they're usually in there with the 7th or the 8th or the 6th on the West. But with Nurkic, there's more flow, I think, because he's a better passer than Whiteside. Although Whiteside's a better rim protector, Nurkic can do a lot more. But how about let's talk about Zack Collins for a little bit. What do you think about him? Because he's kind of been like a forgotten man in this. Because everybody talks about Nurkic coming back, but what about him?
Yeah, I know. I remember at the beginning of the year, Collins was probably one of everybody's favorite fantasy sleepers. With what he can bring from stretch four to his presence inside and being a decent shot blocker. I think for real life coming back in, he's gonna slide in and fit pretty seamlessly. I think. I mean, you can't have too many guys who can stretch the floor, and then you have them be able to get back on D and protect the rim too. It's going to make a big difference when Whiteside's off the floor and Nurkic is back. If Nurkic doesn't have his athleticism back right away, maybe Collins can help make up for that a little bit. And they're used to playing together too. So I don't think it'll be too bad. I know Whiteside tends to be He's had some issues on the court with complaining and worried about his minutes and kind of being he's known for being sort of an all me player. But I think with a strong team like this, with Lillard and McCollum and their veteran presence and leadership, I really think they're going to keep Whiteside in line. And I'm pretty excited for this Blazers team and to see how they do. Collins obviously is a much better defender than Carmelo Anthony. So if you can keep Melo off the floor and let him come in, shoot his threes if he decides to play, for a few minutes at a time, and then bring Collins in to help with defense, I think it's gonna make the Blazers a lot less vulnerable.
I agree with you. I'm also very excited with the Blazers this time around with Nurk coming back. So there's a solid backup now to Whiteside. He doesn't need to play the 32 minutes that he's been playing, sometimes even more. So and without extending ourselves with the Blazers, spending too much time with them, what do you have? What team do you have up next?
Yeah, so I have the Nets next. They have two huge injuries to Hall of Fame players in Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, and it looks like neither one of them is going to be back. So I know there was some people were speculating whether or not this layoff would have been long enough for Durant to heal, but he went on the news and said, I'm not coming back. I'm out this season. They're going to come back strong next year. So it's going to be the Karis LeVert led Nets going into the playoffs. They're probably one of they may be on the outside looking in when it comes to the playoffs, although in the East they might be able to sneak into that A seed, but yeah, I think this really hurts the Nets a lot. I don't think they have enough firepower without Durant or Irving, even though Dinwiddie and LeVert and those guys can play, and Jared Allen. When you're missing two guys like that, you just lose any chance that you had, I think. So yeah, big blow for the Nets.
Yeah, I think it would be wise to sit those two guys this time around, especially with the abbreviated season. I think that the Nets are also interesting because they're sort of doing this like a tryout with the players that are on there. They're sort of like trying out for the next season, like who's gonna stay and who's basically going out. Yeah, and they have the veterans there, and also they have a good mix of young players that they want to develop, right? So they're gonna have to make some tough decisions here. What do you have there? I've got another here that I want to ask you about. What do you think
Sure.
about Ben Simmons coming back? Because I saw some photos on him. I think it was on Twitter or Instagram where he was just ripped, man. He looked like LeBron James on the photos. Like he looks like he's been hitting the gym with this quarantine stuff. But what do you think of him and how he's? Obviously, we know that him coming back is going to affect the usage of some sort of points and all these stats with Embiid, right? Those are the two guys that are taking up usage. But I want to ask you about how he's going to affect Shake Milton, because Shake Milton, when Simmons went down, went off, right? I'm assuming these two guys can play together. What do you think?
Yeah, everything I'm seeing, it sounds like Shake's going to be in the starting lineup, even with Simmons back. I mean, obviously, it's going to kill his stats. So I wouldn't look for the numbers that Shake was putting up. But sometimes injuries can be a good thing in a kind of a weird way. But what it allows is guys like Shake Milton. It allows other guys to step up. And that's huge when you get to the playoffs. Giving Shake that confidence to know if Simmons goes down or someone gets in foul trouble or someone gets hurt, that you have these guys that you can count on. It keeps the whole team's confidence level up that the next guy is going to step in and get it done. It's going to hurt Shake's his stats, but I think overall, the team is going to be better than before Simmons got hurt. And look, no matter what you say about his 3-point shooting, no matter what you say, he should be a 4, he should be a 1. Ben Simmons is an awesome basketball player and another out of this world talent, you gotta, having him on the floor makes your team better. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care about fit. Get that guy on the floor, put him wherever you want. The guy's awesome, and let him play. And I think the Sixers are going to be a scary team to play in the playoffs, especially with, looking even deeper than they did before with Milton playing the way he is.
I agree, because when prior to this, when prior to Milton stepping up, we were always talking about the Sixers starting lineup. But after that, there was nobody. Like, they didn't. It seemed like they didn't have any bench. But now, because of the injuries, we've seen that Milton can take a bigger role into the rotation. And like you said, it's only going to help them when the deeper the team is, the better it is for them, their chances. I think they also need that extra sort of punch off the bench. They don't have a lot of, like I said, other than the starting lineup, they don't have a lot of firepower after that, and they need that if they want to go deep into the playoffs. What do you have up next, Brent?
Yeah, just going down my list, I have the Pacers and Malcolm Brogdon, who, sort of limped into the into the quarantine here, and obviously Oladipo was still trying to work his way back and get his legs back under him, and both those guys are going to be 100% and ready to go for the playoffs. Which, if Oladipo can get his old self back, nothing. Nothing could prepare you for game action, but obviously, I don't think that this time has hurt him at all. I think it's probably only helped him. And having a healthy Brogdon and Oladipo, that's the big question: is how do those guys play together? But Brogdon can really play point guard and give Oladipo that room. And Brogdon's shown that he's an unselfish player. He did great on the Bucks, where he's probably the fourth or fifth option on that team. So he's okay stepping back a little bit and letting Oladipo shine. But if Oladipo struggles or can't get his legs going, Brogdon has shown that he can step up and be that star player too. So, the Pacers are one of those sleeper teams for me coming into this. If they can stay healthy the way Sabonis is playing with Turner's defensive ability and Brogdon and Oladipo leading the way, they're a pretty exciting team. Obviously, losing Lamb hurts them a lot. He's not going to be there. But they're going to be a fun team to watch.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is we're going to see a lot of Victor Oladipo at point, and you're going to see a lot of Malcolm Brogdon off ball, and you're going to see this sort of two guard sort of combo guard lineup that they have, where they're just sharing a lot of the basketball. And yes, as you said, we've seen Brogdon play sort of a lesser role with the Bucks in terms of shooting the basketball and taking up shots. That I think it could work. It could work definitely for the Pacers. They have the bigs there, and they have who's that center that they got, the young guy? I forgot his name. Well, they have Sabonis.
Or Batazzi.
Yeah, they have that Bitadze. Yeah, Bitadze is like, he's an interesting fellow. Like, they can develop him. He's got a good game that he can shoot from the outside, and he's had a good enough game to get into the rotation. And for now, he's stuck because there's a couple of guys ahead of him. But I think they can really develop him, give him a little bit more playing time, and he's going to be a factor, I think, in the future. What do you have up next, Brent?
Man, the next one I have is probably the team hit hardest by injuries coming into the playoffs, but should be getting all their guys back, and that's the Grizzlies. One of the more exciting teams to watch, thanks to Ja Morant and probably his rookie of the year performance this season. But they have three pretty big injuries coming in. They Justice Winslow, who was a trade acquisition that they got, and a lot of people think they may have overpaid for him, but the guy's still only 24 years old. He can play. He could be a big point guard. Shooting's been a knock on him, but he's improved his shooting a little bit, and I think he's not going to be asked there to go out and shoot. He's going to be asked to go out and facilitate, handle the ball, guard guys. He can probably guard 1 through 5, which is always a nice thing to have. They had also Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brandon Clark. We're also banged up. Brandon Clark a little more so. They'll both be back. So this is going to be a scary team. I could see Jaren Jackson Jr. playing the 5. Obviously they're going to have Valanciunas at the 5, but I could see Jackson sliding over and playing a lot of 5 with Brandon Clark out there at the 4, giving him a little athletic team with Winslow at the 3. Winslow, I've heard Winslow move into the starting lineup potentially. So, they're going to be a big, athletic, young, hungry team with a superstar in the making in Morant. That's they're going to be fun to watch in the playoffs. I'm really excited to watch them. Between them and the Pelicans, I think are the 2 teams that I'm most excited to see what they can do.
Yeah, and then they also have Jonas Valanciunas there. Very solid, right? In the middle. And like you said, Morant is such an exciting player. I think the way that it could work is I think they need to put Justice Winslow in like a point forward um, position, and make him handle the basketball and let Ja Morant just focus on scoring and all the other highlight stuff that he likes to do. I think that's the way to go with them. Um, because like you said, I think and I agree, I think they overpaid for Justice Winslow just because we haven't seen him really in a good amount of time. He's always been hurt. So as long as he can get,
he says he's 100%.
oh, did he? Well, yeah. Well, we'll see. Well, hopefully,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see. Yeah. Well, players always sort of exaggerate that their health, but
Never felt better.
yeah, but I think like you said, things the quarantine and all this layoff stuff, the time off, I mean, is gonna help a lot of players. What we don't know is how their bodies are gonna react into this sort of play in league, and this league is gonna happen with the number of games in a short amount of time. So that's really what's interesting. Yeah.
Well, his was a lower back injury, and if you've ever had a lower back injury, you're fine when you're resting. It's when you start to move that you go, oh, never mind. I thought I was okay, but it's still there. And obviously it was really serious. He was sitting out games. They couldn't figure out what was going on. He says he's pain free and symptom free is the quote coming into this. So we'll see. He was some guy who killed me in my dynasty league this year. I had Winslow and was really hoping for a big year out of him. I was kind of saved by the quarantine, I guess. But it would have been fun to see him come back for the fantasy playoffs and seeing if he could help me there. I was lined up to have a good seed, but yeah, I mean, he's an exciting player, and with Jaren Jackson and Brandon Clark and Morant and I'm totally spacing on the 3-point shooter, the guard. What's his name?
Negan.
Yeah, and then they have
Dylan Brooks.
Dylan Brooks, yes. I mean,
yes.
obviously he's just a 3-and-D type of guy, but they have the pieces to match up well against anyone. They can go small ball with JJJ at the 5. They can go big with Valanciunas, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Clark in there, with Winslow at the 2 and Morant. I mean, they can match up really against anybody, or they can become a matchup nightmare for other teams, and it'll be really fun to see what they can do and see Morant with the lights on. And I think Jaren Jackson Jr. has been somewhat of a disappointment. I think people thought he was going to take a huge step forward this year, and he really didn't. He had flashes and shown his potential, but let's see when the lights are bright if he can actually step up and become that player everybody thinks he can. He's still only 21 years old or something, or 20 years old. I mean, he's just a kid. So, this team has so much potential, but, why not go for it this year? You got the chance. They might as well try to make a run for it.
Yeah, super exciting team. Also, like they're very much like the Pelicans, right?
Yeah. Yep. So young, strong starting 5. The Pelicans are gonna be healthy too, with Zion getting even more rest and ready to go. That team is scary. The way Ball was playing and the way Ingram played when Zion was out, and if they can get some chemistry going together, that they're going to be. I mean, they have the big man and Favors. They have the athletic guy and Hayes. They seem to have all the pieces. They have a super deep bench. the Pelican, I think, there's the conspiracy that they even made it 22 teams just so the Pelicans had a chance to get in. And you know what? I don't blame them. The more Zion, the better. And I bought the NBA package. Well, I usually get it every year anyway, but really it was to watch as many Pelicans games as I could this year. I mean, the guy's super fun to watch, and now it's playoff time, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, there's a reason they're including the Pelicans in there. And like you said, I don't blame him. Like at this point, you want to put the teams that people want to see, right?
Yeah.
And people are so starved for just sports in general. Do you have anything else, Brent? That's
I did. I had a couple
yeah.
more. Yeah, I have a couple more kind of interesting ones. So another surprise team this year was the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they really outplayed expectations. Chris Paul, was looking like his young self out there, rejuvenated, playing with Shea Gilgeous. Just looking great. Gallinari, is always solid. He stayed healthy this year. But one guy that they've been missing for a couple of years is their defensive anchor, Andre Roberson. And it sounds like he's going to be healthy and be able to play for the playoffs. So that'll be really interesting, having a guy, that defensive guy, with all those offensive weapons that they have. If they can get anything out of him to shut down the other team's, best player for a little bit of time, or at least slow him down, the Thunder are going to be a really fun team to watch.
I'm on the opposite side. I don't think Robertson should play. He's just gonna mess up the chemistry. They had a very good thing going with the 3 guard lineup that they have: with Chris Paul, Shea Gilgeous, Alexander, and was the other guard, the point guard that they have, the one from the Hawks. Your audio is off, Brent. Yeah, you're back on.
Dennis
Yeah.
Schroeder.
Yes, Dennis Schroeder. Yeah, yeah. So they have a good thing going there with the 3 guard lineup. I don't think Robertson is going to be a big factor, although he does have some defensive capabilities. But I think now with his age and also with his injuries, I don't think he's going to be much of a factor. They have a very good team already. I think what they're lacking is that consistent, healthy big man, because they had Steven Adams injured, and so Nerlens Noel had to step up to a bigger role. And he was then injured as well after that. Like he had some moments, weeks where he was injured. So super annoying with the big that they have. Their strength is really their guards, and also the health of Chris Paul this year. He has been really a big surprise. We weren't expecting that he was going to play. I think he only missed 1 game, and I think he only missed it because of the Kobe death of Kobe, right? I think that's the only game he missed. Yeah, otherwise he played every game, I think. And he was excellent this year. And like I said, we were talking about Chris Paul last week about him cracking into that top 3, top 4 fantasy players of the decade easily. I think easily his game is just so robust and so complete and so well-rounded that he like in his sleep he's probably like top 20 already, right? And you never draft him early enough, but you always draft him late in the first round and into the second round, but he always pays off. It was only this year that you get to draft him super like later, but then he gave you not only X out, but almost all of the games, but all the stats that you would expect of him, healthy.
Yep.
He produced that. So
I'm sure he was on a lot of the top fantasy teams this year, because they got their normal top draft picks and then stole Paul wherever he fell to, and so I bet he was on a lot of what would have been winning teams this year.
Yeah. Do you have another one, Brent? Or
yeah. Well, I mean, if you have something, you could jump in. I just I have LaMarcus Aldridge is going to be out for the Spurs.
Yeah, he's not playing.
But they'll have everyone else. But the Spurs are going to have a tough time. Jonathan Isaac, despite what people are saying, it doesn't sound like he's going to be back. It sounds like Aminu is going to be out too. So they're going to be down those two guys. They will get Fournier back, which will be helpful. But I think, without Isaac and his defense, that's just a killer. That was a killer in fantasy for people. He was having such a breakout season. He's going to be amazing next year to own. But unless he can shake this injury thing, he could end up being one of those really kind of frustrating guys, kind of like how Gallinari was for a bunch of years, where, with more potential, obviously, but, one of those guys who always seemed like they could be a top contributor if they could just stay healthy. And I hate for Isaac to become that kind of guy, but he's still really young. And he's such an exciting guy. The last one I had, John Wall, he won't be back. And then Marvin Bagley, it sounds like he's been working his butt off, is what they say. And he's young. There's still no word if he's back for sure, but it sounds like all signs are pointing towards him making it and giving the Kings. The Kings are going to be one of those frustrating teams to play. For these top teams down the stretch. They have a lot of young guys, very exciting pieces, and they're set up really well for the future if they can, keep their free agents when they come up and get a signing or two. But they're going to be. I wouldn't want to play the Kings if I was one of the top teams right now.
Before I get to the Kings, I just want to mention another guy. You mentioned the Spurs. Derek White, towards the later of this year, was super good in fantasy. Like his defensive stats, percentages, low turnovers, and he was super good when guys were injured, when Aldridge was injured, and a couple of guards were injured. But now I think those guys are coming back, except for Aldridge, and it's too bad because he like Popovich likes him, and he's got a good enough game that well-rounded. He was part of that USA team for a reason, that the one that Popovich coached, and it's too bad that he's splitting minutes at point guard or shooting guard, and they just need to give him a lot more time, and consistent minutes. I think he's going to be a contributor. And then I want to get to the Kings because you mentioned Marvin Bagley. I'm just not a big believer in him because he's always injured, and those foot injuries for big man, those are killer, man. And they carry around a lot of weight, and it puts a lot of stress on the foot. And not only that, they need to give who is this? My favorite here, Rashawn Holmes. They need to give this guy consistent starters minutes. And we've seen it now. We've seen it now that he can do it. Like he can do a lot more with a lot more minutes. And he's the type of guy, he doesn't even need a lot of minutes to be able to produce the stats that he's doing. And he's been shooting 65% from the field and 80% from the line. So as a big man, he doesn't hurt you in those, especially in the free throws. And he'll give you 8 rebounds. He doesn't give you a lot of points, like 13, 12 points, that sort of thing. But he's always like a steal and a block, right? And so he does a lot of positive things. I think they need. I'm not sure if the Kings are sold on him. That's the problem, and they have a problem in the coaching spot as well because they. Luke Walton, I don't know. He's just not. I don't know if he's the right coach for this team. There was a game in the season where they needed a 3-pointer, and Buddy Hield wasn't even in the game. Right? Did you see that, Brent?
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, and a fan was yelling at him, "Why do you have your best 3-point shooter on the floor when you need a 3-pointer?" It was sort of a weird moment. The fan was yelling. But those are my thoughts on the Kings. But I want to ask you before we go. We've spent a lot of time here talking about different teams and different players. With this 22 teams competing for the rest of the season, who do you have as a favorite? Who are you rooting for, and who do you have as a favorite winning it all? Who do you see winning it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I gotta, especially with this rest, I gotta put the Lakers probably as my favorite. We've seen LeBron carry teams, way worse than the team he's on now to either titles or close to the title. And he's never played with anyone as good as Anthony Davis before. And both these guys are going to be rested, healthy. They have good role player pieces around them. I mean, I think it's really close between the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Bucks. And I think, I think the Sixers are probably going to surprise people. The Celtics have looked good, but yeah, I don't know. I just can't bet against LeBron until he proves me wrong. Who do you
Yeah,
got?
yeah, he's just such a proven commodity, right? You know what you're gonna get out of him, and we've seen it time and time again that he's carried teams. I had the Clippers prior to the shutdown. I had the Clippers beating the Lakers out west, just because I think they have a more complete team. But I
Yeah,
think with this type of tournament that they're doing, I do think it favors the Lakers because with with a very abbreviated season, you're gonna lean a lot on team chemistry, and the Lakers already have the players and the chemistry. I'm not sure if the Clippers have the chemistry just because they have a lot of guys hurt at certain periods of the season, so they don't have that collective sort of chemistry or that vibe within the team that they can, because they've had like Paul George was hurt earlier, and then Kawhi is sort of what do you call that, load managing himself, right?
right. Yeah,
And then you have these role players that are in and out of the lineup, so they haven't really had this complete group together and competing against the top teams. So I do think it does favor the Lakers, but like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if even the Sixers would pull through with this. I think Embiid is very motivated. I think the health of Ben Simmons obviously is very key for them.
yeah,
But I think they're a very, very scary team in this type of when you have just a sort of a rapid, games at a time and then going straight into the playoffs. I don't know about the Bucks. The Bucks have been super dominant, overly dominant, I would think, during the regular season. Like I don't know how to gauge them. Like it seems like they were cruising, but I don't know how they're gonna do in the playoffs. Um, what do you think about the Bucks?
I mean, they're a very strong team. Giannis can dominate. He can take over games. He's unstoppable at times. Middleton is, I think I think Middleton may be getting a little bit of a boost because he's playing with Giannis, based on what his skill level is. But I don't know if he's more like Tobias Harris type. But I do, and if with a healthy Bledsoe, with Brooke Lopez, I don't know if they have the depth to compete in a long series against, they could, throughout the season, winning games here and there, but when you're playing a shortened thing like they have going on here with the playoffs, the same team over and over again, it'll be interesting if the Bucks, are deep enough to compete with teams like the 76ers and the Celtics, who have a lot of talent, even the Raptors. And then when you get to playing the Clippers or the Lakers, or maybe the Nuggets or something as a wild card, very deep teams with a lot of chemistry. It's going to be interesting, but yeah, I would put the Bucks up there just because they showed it in the regular season that they can go on long winning streaks, and when you got one of the best players in the league, if not the best player of the league on your team, you can't count you out. I think it'll show a lot if they step right into these playoffs and start blowing teams out. Then I would watch out. I think if their confidence level gets up, they could cruise right through to a championship. But if they get a couple early losses and their confidence gets shaken a little bit, I think it's going to open up space for another team to slide in there.
They feel like a great regular season team, but then in the playoff they're kind of very suspect with what they're gonna do. I think teams can game plan very well against them, and you've seen it with even in the regular season. You've seen the Sixers do a very good job in containing Giannis and how to defend him. So I do think their lineup, there's a lot of holes in it, and they've got they've got some. I think that they need to do some trade or sign some free agents just to mix it up with their team. It's pretty. I don't like when I watch them. It's pretty boring, right? But it's because they're very dominant as well. But it just feels like there's something lacking there. And
Rob,
Yeah. And yes, that's a very good point. I think Brogdon made a huge difference with their lineup. But it was nice. It was nice talking to you, but we both agree the Lakers are have the upper hand here. We're probably gonna look at this live stream a few months from now and see how we did with the Lakers do pull through, or we have sort of a wild card like the Nuggets. You mentioned the Nuggets. They're a good team too. I mean, they can go on a hot streak, and they've got a
Oh
good
yeah,
enough team that they can compete. You mentioned the Sixers, but we'll be watching. Before
absolutely.
we end here, Brent, I just want to ask you, where can we find you on the social media platforms?
Yeah, I tweet quite a bit on at the Fantasy Dick. So just find me on Twitter. I usually do jokes, but I do some sports stuff here and there. Always open to answering fantasy questions, fantasy football, basketball, baseball. Whatever you want to ask. Even if it's just to talk about stuff. It's a fun way to connect with people on there. So yeah. How about you, Mike?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at hoopballmike, and if you can also find hoopball through our YouTube channel, and you'll be seeing this broadcast there, and you can still watch it afterwards. And you can also catch them on hoopball on Twitter at hoopball fantasy. It's kind of like a general um, what do you call that handle for all hoopball news related items. And yeah, we're gonna try to do this every week, and it's been fun. Last week was fun. We had some disagreements on the fantasy side, and now we talk about the NBA returning. We're both very excited with the NBA returning on July 30th. um, Please, if you like this video and you want to see more, you can check out our YouTube channel, and also like and subscribe the channel. And I guess I'll be talking to you again next week, Brent.
Yeah, I hope so. But either way, it was fun, Mike. I'm sure we'll be talking a lot, before the summer's over, and so excited to have basketball back. Can't wait.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Brett.
All right, thank you.
Take care. Bye.